African National Congress is set to hold its January 8 statement at the Moruleng Stadium in the Northwest this week. Now, last September, the ANC held a roll call of councillors and outlined a local government plan at ANC-led municipalities. About 10 Northwest are either under administration or facing financial troubles. The South African Human Rights Commission found that at least 10 of the 19 municipalities were in violation of residents' rights, highlighting water challenges, sewage spills, unsafe infrastructure as among the province's worst ailments. Let's discuss this now with the local government expert, Dr. Harlan Cloete. Dr. Cloete, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning to you, Mpolelo, and good morning also to the viewers.
Now, I think it's really important, Dr. Cloete, that when we speak about the Northwest and the ANC's relationship, we backtrack a little bit, right? Because the ANC remains a dominant force in the Northwest, and one must look at beyond the current headlines and into history, which is defined mainly by the resistance against the Bantustan regimes and a deep-seated alliance with traditional leadership there. Talk to us about the significance of the period before 1994 in the Northwest and its alignment to the ANC.
Yeah, if you look at the period, like you said in your introduction, the period of resistance and the Bantustan, so there's always been a backlog. You know, the apartheid state was built on this grand plan of the homeland system, a form of independence, but we know that that was not the case. And so there was a resistance in the former homelands. And I don't think over the last 30 or odd years, we've managed quite to narrow that backlog in terms of services and in terms of service delivery to the people. And so the Northwest remains significant. You know, someone argued the other day that we had in 1994 a combination of almost 14 different countries being amalgamated into one. And I think coupled with a sometimes lack of leadership, what we've seen, the corruption, you know, the homeland system was basically also a system based on lies, a system based on corruption as well. And those patterns have in many ways continued.
And of course, then that period and what it did for the people of the Northwest, now Northwest, has really solidified its relationship and how it views the ANC. Will it be rather amiss to say that the ANC is leveraging the past successes in the Northwest that is seeing its current stronghold in that province?
I think that stronghold is slipping. You know, people saw the ANC and still continue to see the ANC as the party of liberation. But I think together with that has been the absolute disappointment in terms of, and I think that is difficult for citizens, you know, especially in the Northwest. You know, people expected better. And like you said in your introduction, there's about 10 municipalities under administration, which shows, you know, there's either lack of political leadership or there's a lack of implementation from the administrators, maybe the wrong people appointed. And so there's also a sense of, you know, where have we gone wrong? What is it that needs to be done? And that's why this year is such an important year for the governing party, or the ANC, who still enjoys the majority status. It's still the biggest party in the country. And in a space like Northwest, it still carries that hope. And so what ANC voters have typically done in the past, they either desert the party and try something else, or they just stay away, you know, and say, you know, we're then not going to vote because either the quality of the opposition parties that come with an alternative is too weak, or they just don't vote on the day.
Let's talk then about how the ANC might try to leverage the January 8 statement to its favor, particularly ahead of the local government elections next year. What do you think the tone will be?
I think the tone will be more or less the same. You know, promises, talks about renewal, talks about cleaning up. You know, the January 8 statement is important because if you look at years gone by, it sets the political tone for the year. It sets, you know, and one can expect in this year's January 8 statement, there'll be a lot of talk about renewal and making sure that the ANC elects the right candidates, because it has often been accused of not putting in the right candidates. And that's why we've seen the mushrooming of community issue-based parties, because people, the ANC have been accused of selecting or the wrong candidates that may not be as popular within the community. Local government is completely different to national elections in that it is that sphere of government closest to the people. So the January 8th statement will be loaded with local government rhetoric. That will be followed by the State of the Nation address in February, where that sets the tone. So the ANC over the years has been very, very good at making promises. I think it's at that space of breaking those promises. It's one thing saying one thing, and governance is about behavior. The ANC does not always behave in a way that speaks to ethical, accountable government. Hence, we see in the Northwest, so many municipalities under administration, which basically says that we've got a lack of governance. And governance speaks to behavior, accountability, leadership, ethics. Those are the things that define outcomes. Those are the things that define governance. And so the ANC has behaved themselves into the state that it finds itself in. It's actually in a corner where it is struggling, I think, on a national phase to come to terms that it's a 40% party. I think that decline will continue with local government as issue-based parties arise locally.
So that's very interesting, Dr. Cloete, that you mentioned the dwindling support that you foresee in the Northwest towards the ANC. I want us to talk about the behavior of voters during local government elections. You did mention that it's quite different. Voters approach these elections differently to what they would the national elections. Talk to us about how they make their decisions. You spoke also about the rise of civil society organizations. Let's talk about next year's elections.
Look, this year's elections, 2026. So local government elections is about issue-based. It's about service delivery. It's about local economic development. And, the system of government that we have is very interesting. We've got ward councillors. So you may not be able to see the president, but you may, or even have an appointment with a mayor, but certainly you have a ward councillor. So that person, for all intents and purposes, is like the mayor of that ward, that geographical ward. So we've got wall-to-wall municipalities and wards. And so citizens have an opportunity every 5 years to elect people that can best serve their interest. And so that's why it's local, it's issue-based, it's personality-driven in many instances. We've seen in many municipalities when people are not happy with the caliber of the candidate, for example, they simply stay away or they vote for a community-based party. So it's less about ideology and more about the issues on the ground. And that's why our democratic system allows what is called representative democracy and participatory democracy. So it's dynamic at the local government sphere. It's highly contested. And so it's important that the right candidates get elected. I also want to add that, local government or being a councillor is the first step into the middle class. And so the stakes are very high. We have seen in many municipalities, in many provinces, that as we build up to local government elections, you also have political killings. And because the stakes are so high, it's the first step into the middle class and to get access to resources for the next 5 years.
It's certainly going to be an interesting statement, and we await to see how the ANC will handle this and the response then from those living in the Northwest. Dr. Harlan Cloete, thank you very much for your time.